All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Fruits Basket Prelude. All right, this is a movie.
Yeah.
It's probably a prequel of some kind. We have been given the heads up that the first 33 minutes is recap.
Yes.
So we are going to be starting from 33 minutes and 30 seconds into the movie. We're really excited to get into this, but this is also the last bit of Fruits Basket content we'll probably be doing for the channel ever.
Which is very sad to think about. But, okay. But given that it's called Prelude...
Yeah, and the recap that we did check out, but we're not going to have in the recording bit here, very much seemed to focus on Kyo.
Right.
Like, overwhelmingly focus on Kyo. Like, obviously a little bit of Tohru's mom.
Right, which makes sense, because, like, Kyo is the canon end character, I guess. So, okay. But, like, if it's a prelude, maybe then it's going to focus on, like, early Kyo when he runs away and
maybe
like
when they were kids or something.
Right, meets Tohru's mom, things like that. Because like that seems like the obvious story to tell, unless there's a story that we just don't know about.
Yeah, I think that if you're gonna do a movie where you'd have only a bit of runtime, like 2/3 of the runtime focused on the actual new content, I would think you'd want to limit the scope of the cast.
Sure.
You wouldn't want it to be too large. And Fruits Basket has
very large
cast. In some ways, that could be like one of the only negatives you could throw at Fruits Basket. I would say legitimately, in my opinion. It's just that
so many characters.
There's too many characters.
Right. But with the prelude, if it's before all the characters get introduced, then that's a good reason for there to be only, maybe 3 or 4 characters.
Yeah. I very much want some stuff with Tohru's mom, especially.
Me too.
A lot of the things that we got at the end with kind of tying up a bow on what happened between her and Kyo for those few times that they interacted was just really special. So having something like that would be really good. Yeah. And also just seeing little Tohru again would just be
that would be
so cute.
That would be absolutely wonderful.
That would be so good. Yeah. But all right, thank you all so much for coming with us on this journey through Fruits Basket and stuff. This was just a wonderful time. If you've enjoyed the journey, please like and subscribe. I'm going to start doing this just in general in YouTube videos because apparently the YouTube algorithm wants us to do it.
Why not?
But guys, this has been an incredible time. We'll have a new show coming up after this on early access through Patreon, so check that out as well. But y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion.
Okay.
Well, that's it.
All right.
That's Fruits Basket.
Yeah.
We got ourselves a little end note prequel to kind of tie up a little bit of a loose end in the character of Katsuya.
Yep.
Katsuya was a character that we had vague kind of stuff alluded to. But
we didn't need him in the show, really. So I
feel
like
we didn't really need him in the show. That's true.
So him being relegated to a movie like this, I feel like that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I feel like it would have cleared up a couple things though by having some of this be trickled in more in the earlier bits of the show. But at that point, Tohru's already alone, so it's
right.
It kind of would be awkward to bring it up in a way that would reveal in some ways too much about Tohru too quickly.
Sure.
So yeah, it's a tricky thing to figure out how to do. But
okay.
All that being said, they were a risque romance.
Yep.
He liked her when it was not cool to be
right.
Yeah. But that was mostly because he saw in himself and in her a similarity.
Right.
But a key difference was that she had this strength that allowed her to be vulnerable with her emotions.
In a way that he hadn't.
In a way that he hadn't been. And the thing is, that the difference is that she was with a complete stranger. He was with his family.
Yeah. So, like, I really loved how that introduction went because I totally understand the in some ways it can be more freeing when you're in front of a stranger.
Sure.
Because
there's no attachment.
There's no attachment, there's no baggage, you're not going to see them again, right? But she still took that leap. And that's something where her brash nature is one of the things that got her into trouble, right? But it also is propagated based on environmental issues and things like that. But she didn't really see it ever as, I think, something to be proud
positive,
of.
yeah.
Yeah, like even if she was positive about it, it was positive about it because she was using it to rebel, not because she actually like found value in it on its own. I feel like, it was more of just a necessity kind of a thing, and he was able to show her that, right?
And because of her brashness, this story happened. If she was a different person,
right,
her and Katsuya would have never been a thing.
Yep.
Never.
Absolutely
He wouldn't have looked a second in her way with any kind of extra attention.
Right.
No.
Because I get the feeling like even though it wasn't like focused on much from the standpoint of like his perspective, because it's very much from Kyoko's perspective,
Yes.
and then he opens up about himself sometimes, but that he was very much getting something out of those interactions as well.
Yes.
Like she was helping him, I would say, learn, process, grow, all of that stuff, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
he was so aimless and sort of just didn't have any lust for life or anything like that. It's just sort of blasé,
I guess I'll just do
vie.
this, and I'll just blend in. I'll just make things happen.
exactly,
I'll get people to like me through my charming personality, and I have no
another day, another dollar.
no passion.
Right. And then that changes a bit. And I like that the story of like the dude that, has like the professional attire and all that stuff,
right.
but has no passion or anything, and then the girl that comes along and helps him give him passion. That's a very tropey kind of story, but I like that in this situation it's something where no, she was someone who needed help, right? And then it's the okay, yeah, I can care about something because I care about helping this person that I see so much of myself in.
Yeah,
right?
he navigated the role and power dynamic situation rather well, despite his risque nature and borderline.
Right.
Yeah. That's a whole thing right there.
That's a whole other conversation.
But the way in which he took care of basically making sure that she would care more about herself,
right,
and basically love and respect herself was really good. It was really good. Now, by the time that they're starting to show that she's like, oh, I'm actually like falling for him and stuff, I'm sure he's like old enough and smart enough and aware enough to be like, no, I can kind of tell what's going on.
Well, in a similar way to like when there's like the girls at the school where it's like, okay, yeah, he was the popular teacher crush basically. Okay, cool. Yeah. And he'd be aware of that, right?
Yeah, some late teen, maybe 20-year old or something like that.
Exactly,
like, I'm
right. Of course the girls are going to be tittering about him and all that stuff,
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But then it's like, oh no, she gets older and she's actually like trying to take her life back, and then it's like, oh, hey, maybe something ends up happening here. And the fact that, holy shit, he proposes to her, not even talking to her, but talking to her parents. Like that was
because legally, I think she was still under 18. I think at the time,
right?
So she was either like 16 or 17, and then he's like, oh,
yeah, because entrance exams. So last year of high school.
Yeah, so she probably was 17, and he's like, oh no, I can't actually marry her unless you guys give permission. I believe legally you're adult in Japan at 18.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and the idea that she's working hard to do all this stuff. He's still teaching her even after he's not like in training anymore. That's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And then the gang rears its ugly head again and beats the shit out of her right before she needs to take her entrance exams. And I would not be surprised if that was a intentionally timed incident, right? Of like the gang choosing that time because
I don't
they know
think they knew too much about her life.
Really. Oh no?
No, I think that was more the she was stressed out about, entrance exams coming up. So she goes out to her quiet place to study.
Oh no, yeah,
and
totally.
they came there and were like, "Oh, you're actually here. Okay, yeah."
Right. Either way, it has different kinds of like
Narrative weight.
right?
Yeah.
But the idea that it's like, oh yeah, that ends up being a problem. What does she do? Right.
Yeah.
Like the situation with her parents was the thing that I was the most sort of like unsure about over the course of it, because earlier on they were like, oh, get out of here, we never want to see you again.
Right.
And we opened up the movie with her being on the street, but I get the feeling she wasn't like on the street throughout the entirety of that time, because
No,
how
she
would
was
she
a
have
kid
survived?
at the
Right.
time.
Right,
No,
exactly.
she was probably running away from home, running around with the gang, getting into fights and stuff like that. And she would come
Sure.
home beat up or bruised or
Right.
just late at night, and they probably just had it with her at that point.
Right. They didn't really interact with her as a daughter, but they didn't keep her from,
Well, they
sneaking
probably
back
couldn't.
into her bed or whatever.
They probably couldn't keep her, in that regard. One of the things that's very difficult, I would say, if you're a parent specifically, is it's very difficult to actually
Make
keep your child
do something, or
to keep your child in the house like that. If they really want to get out of the house, they
oh, totally,
can.
yeah.
Like,
No,
it's-
I was more meaning of them keeping her out of the house, because that was the
Oh,
vibe
no,
that
no,
I got
no,
from
no.
when they were talking to her before, of like, you're not welcome here.
yeah, but that was after.
No, there were the 2 points. There was the point where they said it originally, right, and then they sort of like phased out of the story, and then there was the bit after.
Yeah, that was when
with the exams.
That was when she's closer to being an adult, and now she's coming back basically, and she's probably telling them a little bit about her situation, and then he comes in and proposes. I really liked there that she also was like, "Oh, why are you doing this for me? Like, what are you doing this for?" And he's like, "I'm disappointed. You think I did that out of
Right.
pity?
Yeah,
Like,
you must not know me that well.
you holy God." He's like, "How did you learn about that?"
Right.
It's like, damn it, I've been discovered. but God, the ways in which the movie used the characters that it focused on to emphasize how Tohru came to be is perfect.
Oh yeah,
Is perfect.
because it
Oh.
makes total sense of the bits of each of them that she got, but then also the ways in which she acted on her own and became her own person as a result of the stuff that happened after, because that's one of those things that
That'd
like
be traumatic.
oh yeah, and like
Being neglected for however long it was. I like
Yep.
that the story chose to not tell us how long it was, to draw the eeriness, almost as if we were Kyoko and we were
Yep.
in a time warp, and it was just
you're right. What happened? We know
who
that
knows?
Katsuya's dad came over a few times, but like we don't know,
Yeah.
we don't know exactly what that was, how often or whatever. Yeah. So, but then the idea that we actually get to see, because I feel like this isn't often gone into in like anime and stuff. If you have the tragic like cough, like oh no, they have a cold and then suddenly
Character
they're dead.
suddenly dies, yeah.
Right. Character suddenly dies. What does that do to the other parent? Because
yeah.
because there's what does that do to the kids, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that's very often and thoroughly explored.
Because the kids are usually the main characters.
Because the kids are usually the main characters.
Right.
But what if you're a parent and you're a fairly young parent
Yes.
and, you're not going to have everything put together just because you're a grown-up, right?
Yeah, the other dynamic being one where he was the primary breadwinner.
Sure.
He was also a lot older. He probably had a lot better handle on the logistics of their situation.
Right. And then
thus,
suddenly he's gone, right?
gone,
So
yeah.
not only, is Kyoko devastated and, has to figure out how to pick up the pieces and continue living because, your other half is it's a void now.
Yeah, but there's a lot of areas, where she wasn't emotionally mature or even like
Sure. Yeah.
ready to think about maybe what life would be like, even in the future, if Katsuya ever, because he would pass away earlier than
Right.
her, for sure.
But, if that's 50 years down the road, then, okay.
Yeah, I don't have to think about it.
But, she also, because of, the situation, she has nobody. Like she has Katsuya's dad, and that's
it. That's it, yeah.
I loved how this movie took some of the elements of the show that were very much there, but weren't prominently a big part of the story, I feel like.
Okay.
Like Katsuya's dad, right? The idea that, oh yeah, Toru's grandpa, no, that's that's the dad that Katsuya's talking about, you know? Because of course it is, right?
Well, yeah,
And then because that's how it works, right? Like, and then it's like, oh yeah, here he is. Okay, cool. The ways in which we saw how the family responded and didn't do anything for Kyoko and Tohru in the backstory that we saw in the show, and then we see the
reason why.
The reason why and the right, and then also the real impact that it would have on Kyoko because how would she know how to deal with all this shit?
Yeah, we kind of skipped over a lot of the time that happened after Katsuya's death in the anime in terms of what was flashed back to focus on. We just kind of focused on the points where Tohru was doing a lot of things for Kyoko.
Exactly.
Saw
Like
just sometimes where they were alone and had, just each other, or Uo would come by and,
right. The super mom.
She was a super mom
Like,
already at that point. Yeah.
Right, exactly. The whole bit of, because it was such a traumatic thing for Tohru, we didn't really see it until later in the show that was a thing that even happened, right? So getting to see it in a movie like this where we can go through all the details of it and everything, we don't have to worry about the fact that, Tohru isn't going to want to dwell on that very much in the show, so we naturally wouldn't see as many details. Like, no, not a problem here.
I love the way that this movie focused on something that the show focused on was the breaking of cycles in family.
Okay.
And if Katsuya and Kyoko both had a negative impression of parents from their childhood.
Right.
Having this be something that they could break that repeating cycle of into their family, despite there being ways in which they still ended up hurting their daughter,
Yes, right.
is a really beautiful bit of just writing, because while they didn't intend to hurt Tohru, they did.
Yep.
But that's the point of family. The vulnerability and the connection that you have opens you up to the potential to be hurt, but also for the potential for all the other amazing things as well. So while Tohru develops a complex because of not just her father dying,
but also
what happened with her mother, it's the kind of thing where, could you say that that this all happened because of the ways in which they were raised that brought things into this situation where it would go this way? Yeah, maybe.
Sure.
In some ways, the influence of those parents can still be felt because, Katsuya's dad comes by and helps at those very key moments.
Exactly.
Tohru's grandparents don't come for those key moments. There's a very clear difference that probably creates in her mind of wait, you're daddy's dad, but where's mommy's dad? Why don't...
Yeah.
Yeah. So that informs there.
Which also is that totally makes sense, and I believe it was established in the TV show that Kyoko had been kind of disowned by her parents, right?
Oh yeah,
so that's why they weren't in the story. But also from a structural perspective, makes things a lot simpler because then you have fewer characters that you need to bring into the into the narrative, right?
Oh, totally. But just the way in which Tohru then becomes the cycle breaker for the entire Soma family,
right,
and the Soma estate and all that.
Yep.
Through something that was in and of itself born out of two parents wanting to break a cycle so that their family would be free of all that.
Well, and also born out of specifically the most traumatic thing that happened in Tohru's family, right? Because she wouldn't have become like she wouldn't have done all that stuff to try and be like Katsuya for her mom. If her mom hadn't been so devastated by it, right? Yeah. She probably wouldn't have been able to help the Somas nearly as much as she did if she
wasn't like Katsuya a little bit.
Exactly,
she wasn't so likable. She wasn't so just able to get on everyone's good side, but also by doing that in such a overt way, draw attention to it as they start to grow and realize, wait, Tohru,
hold on,
you can care for yourself. You can look out for yourself too.
Yeah. Also, I love that in this movie we got to see a much more flawed and vulnerable side of Kyoko. Because I love every bit of the show where she's being super mom. I absolutely adore it. Right.
Totally.
Some of my favorite moments of Fruits Basket. But having this as a counterbalance is the way that we can see that it's not just because Kyoko was magically the parent of the protagonist,
Right.
and so they're a super parent because that's how the protagonist will see them when they're growing up because they're young, so
Right.
naturally that's how they actually are.
Yeah.
No. They're a very flawed human being, right? That came from a place where, quite frankly, they were lucky.
Yeah.
If not for the fact that that one girl had just called out to her mom nearby, what kind of a show would we have had? There wouldn't have been one.
Wouldn't have been a
but
show.
even if we did, that would have been a dark, depressing show that would have been a hell of a lot shorter, right? Like,
yeah. The Tohru that would have been in the tent out by the place that eventually gets landslid, she would have been out there maybe for a different reason. And
maybe would have stayed out there.
Maybe this would have been the story where everyone looks out for Tohru,
right?
But Tohru doesn't. Tohru doesn't have the capacity to help them,
Right, but they wouldn't necessarily have the capacity to help her either,
Or even to help themselves by just helping Tohru,
Right. So it's
Yeah. There's a lot of really cool things in where a prequel can very properly kind of tie in a whole bunch of loose things that maybe were a little bit disparate, and then you can basically say, there was a single stimulus, like little bit that just went poof, and just started the chain reaction. But they'd been doing this for Fruits Basket like all throughout the show. There's been little dominoes that have already been set up. So this is just the next one before that whole thing there.
And I gotta say, I really appreciate that because generally when I hear of a movie
that's canon,
that goes alongside a finished show that resolved very nicely, I tend to be a little worried.
Right.
Because it's like, wait, hold on.
Don't introduce new elements.
Right. Like,
don't try to shake this up.
We have a good thing here.
Like, the best thing you can do, even though this was a prequel, so it couldn't have been this, is basically just give more fan service for the epilogue.
Right.
Just
but then where's the conflict?
But then why do you tell the story at all?
Why do you tell the story at all? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So having it be one that is a prequel, it's like, okay, thank God, right? The ending is still the ending, right? Yeah.
Sanctified.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But then it's also something that, with the way that they did it, works very nicely with the show, and it doesn't like if it does recontextualizations, it's recontextualizations that still make sense. It's not like we're going to completely flip things around or whatever. It's like no, it's just the story that we didn't get. Right?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. So Katsuya and Kyoko, and then they have a little girl, little Tohru, and Tohru is just a bundle of cuteness. But I love how little Tohru spoke in a way that feels, I don't know, almost intentional, or just like it's a little girl, so they're not gonna say that much anyway.
Right.
But I'm trying to think. I remember there was a part where she said "Papa," but I don't know if she ever said "Mama" in the whole movie. I think that point where the girl on the waterfront said "Mama" was like the only time in the movie.
Interesting.
Those words were said.
Okay.
That word was said. I have to go back and check, but I feel like that was the thing of where she's then like, I haven't heard her voice. I haven't heard her say anything. What?
Yeah.
And just the way in which that moment hit so well because of the foreshadowing of what are we going to do when we hurt our daughter. This is how we'll raise her.
Exactly.
And I was just like, they set this up. This is brilliant. This is wonderful. It's just a very simple bit of catharsis here, but it's also coming in with the emotion of realizing that, there are times when, as a parent, you don't know that you're hurting your kid.
Sure.
You're unaware. You're not a perfect human being. You're not Supermom. You're going to pull out the dishwasher and, and hit them on the head.
Yeah.
And it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You don't have to faint and pass out.
Even if, it's like, oh shit, I caused my child to bleed. Yeah.
The beauty of the apologize, so taking responsibility, something that Katsuya probably championed because he probably had some bit of reconciliation with his father of, I need you to take responsibility for stealing my childhood.
I loved the line of he was an obstacle. I don't hate him, but he was an obstacle I had to overcome. It's like
right,
that,
which means also that now the obstacle was overcome off
Right,
screen.
exactly,
It was just
yeah.
done.
Right, but hey, apologizing, owning up to your mistake, that's something that maybe Kyoko's parents could have really used doing.
Yes.
Like, even Kyoko ended up realizing, oh shit.
Yeah,
Like,
I
even
didn't realize.
even though they were doing horrible things in how they were treating her, right? I didn't realize what kind of an impact my words would have on them.
Right.
Oh.
It's that element of something that I feel like is really nuanced, and Fruits Basket does a really good job at this. There's an element where we have horrible parents in Fruits Basket,
Yes.
but almost all of them can be kind of understood. Even though they're
Right.
horrible people,
Yeah. It's
most of them have very crazy extenuating circumstances that they're dealing with, or immense amounts of pain that they're coping with, and it has broken them. Most
Sure.
of them are absolutely broken, shattered people. Some of them are awful, evil sons of bitches. Like, they're
Right.
just awful.
And it doesn't, and just because you understand them does not mean that,
Exactly.
that anything about the dynamic needs to change or anything like that.
Yeah, or anything of what they're doing is right or something like
Yep,
that.
yep.
No. But the idea that as a kid, you don't really understand how many times you will, without knowing it, hurt your parents in ways that will actually traumatize them. Like,
Oh, yeah.
like this is the thing that I think is very it's a missed opportunity sometimes, I'd say, in a lot of stories, is basically that parents can traumatize their kids. There's a
Absolutely.
power dynamic. There's
Right.
there's a whole lot of dynamics there. So there's a lot of ways they can traumatize their kids. In fact, it's almost on some societal level, a lot of people believe it's just a foregone conclusion
Right.
that parents will give some small dose of trauma to their kids.
Right, exactly. Varying sizes
degrees.
and in ways,
Degrees.
but it's going to happen, right?
But a kid can also end up doing the same thing, but it's very rare, usually, I would say, in
Right.
comparison.
The adults will have a better
way to handle
way
it.
to handle it.
Yeah.
But the thing is still happening.
Yes.
Right.
Especially the older the kid gets. Usually, I would say it's that point when you start to realize that your child is maturing. They're, starting to become a teenager. You know,
Yeah.
they're having thoughts and, opinions of their own. They're
Getting
breaking
into that
off the
rebellious,
umbilical cord
thing,
of
yeah.
their parents' teachings and stuff like that.
Yep.
And and you can be like, I remember this. I did this. Yeah, okay. And
also,
then it lets you accept it. But also, ow.
Yeah.
Shit. Oh.
Right. Yep.
Oh, I don't have that easy connection to my kid anymore that I just kind of had by
just being the parent and feeding them.
by
and all
just
that.
being in proximity. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. They don't
They don't need me.
Yeah, exactly.
I loved the bit where Kyoko is realizing, no, there is no such thing as a necessary person. Because
That was in her depression.
that was in her
darkness,
depression and nihilism and everything. Because the thing is, yeah, that's
She's right.
The world will keep going,
Yep.
right? It's not that that's incorrect or wrong. It's that that's incomplete, right?
Yes.
And that's why then the realization of like, yes. So then, seeking out the comfort and the care of someone else who does need you and you need them. Yeah, is that a way to deal with the fact that the world doesn't need you?
It's very lonely
Yes.
and
There's,
cold. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like that's absolutely fine and healthy and good. Not sure exactly where I was going with this, but I really liked that it happened.
Well, I think what you were going with this kind of is just the idea that when child and parent realize basically that they don't need each other.
Exactly,
There's
yes.
an element of importance that can be found in the act of then realizing, but I want to choose
Exactly.
to be close to you.
There is a breaking of a bond that happens. And it can be very uncomfortable, and it can, cause all kinds of
and it can irreparably
collateral
change the
damage.
relationship.
Yep. But without the bond being broken, then you
Yep.
cannot. Then without that, you can't have the clasped hands.
Yeah,
So
and it's so good. The themes of Fruits Basket, repeating these little elements that are just yes, exactly, chef's kiss.
Yep.
The idea that Kyoko needed to lose herself a little bit, like she said in the movie here,
Right.
in order to find who she actually was.
Right.
Just,
She was still dependent on Katsuya.
She was.
Right.
And God, that's so...
And the bond ended up being broken, and that was real fucking hard.
That's really painful to think about, like, that the act of someone dying is kind of what the bonds of the Soma family were kind of feeling like to
Akito when they were breaking.
When they were breaking.
Yeah.
Was
yeah.
basically like a death was happening in the family. And the child-parent kind of dynamic was effectively there, and it's just,
Yep.
broken, realizing that there's no necessary reason for them to have a relationship right now.
Right.
The obligation is gone. The curse, if you will, of being being bound in this way is no more. But that doesn't mean that. Wait, Kyoko, why are you saying this like it's a final goodbye? It's not like we'll never see each other again. I loved that little bit where Katsuya's like, hey,
Right.
I can't say anything right now because I'm already a bit of a kind of
Yeah.
So we'll see each other again. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Yep. Yep. And then of course there is the point where there's the actual final goodbye. But you know, yeah. Also, when it showed Tohru and Kyo at the end there, and it's like, there's the ring there and everything. It's like, yes.
And we know what you were doing, movie artists, when you made Kyo look so freaking like filled out and like manly, and his neck was like huge, and his hands were like massive. And I'm
they done grew up, yeah. But there was this part of me that's like, and then that's the day that they ended up starting their family, right? Like maybe, you know, like, but yeah, I just. Yeah.
But yeah, I like that they moved also to a place by the sea.
Mm-hmm. That was nice.
That was nice. Hide everything back with Kyoko there.
In the ED, that was an excellent choice. I didn't expect to feel the things that I was feeling as that song was playing, and we got those the montage, you know, from all the wonderful moments from the show.
I'm gonna rewatch this show like 4 times probably, like at least in the next like 5 years, I would say.
I could see that. Yeah.
Because I really really love the end conclusion to this story.
Yes.
It was very, very well built up. I would love more, personally. I feel like, if anything, like I still feel like there were some things that could have been further explored.
Yeah, we love the characters enough that we could totally get additional time with them that doesn't necessarily have to do with any kind of big conflicts,
especially
or whatever.
for Tohru, yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But just like some good slice of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some more thoughts and stuff in general. But all right. Y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. The follow-up show to this that we'll be reacting to is No Game, No Life.
A very similar,
Totally similar. Yeah. This is one that Jacob has seen.
Right.
And that we have both seen the movie for. But it's a show that's been around for a long time, and we've just never gotten around to it.
Yeah.
And then after that, we'll be picking up Mob Psycho 100 Season 3. This was decided in a poll where we had some things getting slotted in for seasonals, and also because of this poll, there will be a seasonal reaction coming out for a very big hype anime that I don't know, you might have heard of. It's a kind of show, you know.
Indeed.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
That'll come eventually.
Yep.
What have you. But y'all, thank you so much for watching this movie's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the full-length timer version of this reaction, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there. Any level of support there gets you access to our Discord, where you can chat with us about Fruits Basket, anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.